All right, so here's some idle rambling about the meaning or purpose of life, as you can tell by the title. I just felt like doing this, and I'm going to show you some landscape videos and photos to make this a little more visually appealing. And, well, obviously, this is one of the big questions that people have asked throughout history. And as far as we know, we humans are the only ones who ponder these questions. Again, as far as we know, if whales ask those questions and talk about those, we wouldn't know. That doesn't mean that they don't, but yeah, we just have no way of figuring that out. In any case, so if you ask the question, what's the meaning of life? As far as non-human animals are concerned, the meaning of life to them is, well, being, existing, doing their thing, surviving, things like that. As far as humans are concerned, I like to say that the meaning in life is the one that you create, the one that you give it. That's what we humans do. We create things. We create ideas, cultures, philosophies, worldviews, and we create values, norms, ideals. Really everything that matters to us, we create. Of course, if you're a religiously minded person, you might disagree. You might claim that meaning comes from a higher power. However, I would say that we create these higher powers as well. And I don't even mean that exclusively in this atheist sense, that all religion, all spiritual beliefs are just artificially created and fictional. What I mean is, even if you believe that there is a deity, especially if you believe that it is an all-powerful and all-knowing deity, the idea that you have of it is human-made. The idea of God is definitely a human product, because if you think about it, if you believe in an all-powerful being that created the universe, and you then imagine it's just some dude sitting on a cloud, that doesn't really work, does it? I mean, if you do believe in a God like that, obviously it cannot be human. I mean, it cannot have a human personality, and it cannot think like a human. Something that is everywhere at once and sees everything and knows everything, that is so just vastly far removed from human experience that we would have no idea what it's like. So the idea, the concept of a God in case of such a transcendent deity is created by us humans. We've come up with a way to imagine it. And I've read about Hindus saying something along those lines as well, that all our gods are a way of connecting with the divine. It doesn't mean that they look the way that they are portrayed, or they have exactly those characteristics and those behaviors that people talk about. It's just a way for humans to connect with that divine. And again, I'm talking here hypothetically. I'm not trying to convince you that any particular gods exist or anything. As I've mentioned before, I'm agnostic myself. I'm just, pondering this on a conceptual level. And of course, if you're an atheist, then yeah, obviously everything is about creating meaning, because there is none. In nature, there is no meaning, as far as we can tell. It just is, and it doesn't have to have meaning. It just exists. A rock is just there. It doesn't have inherent purpose or meaning or anything like that. You have to assign meaning to certain things. And also, if you think about how we conceptualize and name objects, the way we categorize them, and how we draw artificial lines. For example, at what point does a collection of parts become a car? How many parts does it take? Is there a certain number of parts? Like if you have the frame and wheels, but nothing else, no engine, no doors, nothing else, is that a car? Probably not. And how many things can you take away from it before it stops being a car? At what point becomes a cake batter an actual cake? There is no moment where it suddenly snaps from one to the other. Also, at what point does a human being become an adult? When do you transform from being a child or an adolescent to being an adult? There is no fixed point, right? It's all a fluid gray zone. And we as humans have come up with ways to deal with that uncertainty. Many cultures around the world have rites of passage for that purpose. It's a ritual that you go through which symbolically transforms you from being a child to becoming an adult. But it's of course all human created. There is no fixed point where you can suddenly go, oh, click, there you go, now you're this. And same with gender. I know that some people hate hearing about this because they have a very traditional gender image and they're apparently deeply offended by any differing views, but there are quite a few cultures in the world that have more than one gender. By default, gender is not sex. Sex is the physical aspect, what you have between your legs, basically. And even that is not as simple. You have intersexed individuals. Sometimes you have someone who looks male on the outside and has male genitals, but still ovaries at the same time, or any other combination. It's not always that clear cut. And some cultures have a third gender, or even more. So again, we create meaning and we draw boundaries. Same with ethnicity or nationality. It is an artificial boundary. I mean, yes, of course you can look at genetic differences between different populations, but those don't inevitably lead to different nationalities. And you can look at different neighboring populations that are very, very similar in terms of genetics, but they still belong to different nationalities, and people ascribe different cultural traits to them. And the boundary maintenance also comes into play when, for example, you transition from one into the other. At what point does an immigrant become a native? Some people would say never. Other people would say, well, after a certain period of time, like say if you've been living there for 30 years or if you've grown up there and you're fully assimilated into the culture, then you are one of those. You have taken on that nationality. And there are different ways of viewing it. The mere fact in and of itself that there is some disagreement about that some people will vehemently argue about it, that in and of itself shows you that, well, we create meaning. We humans do. If it was something obvious in nature, inherent, then we could just point at it and go, yeah, see, there you are. But it's not that simple, exactly because we create these things. So since we are the ones who define them, of course, we can argue about the definition. So this is the kind of stuff that I learned throughout my studies in cultural anthropology. It's a very fascinating subject. A lot of people would dismiss that because, hey, what's that? What's that good for? But hey, what's philosophy good for, right? You might as well say that. What is being aware of the ways in which humans live and in which they conceptualize their world? How is that useful, right? It just lets you understand people more, hopefully. I could ramble a lot longer about this, but let's leave it at that for now, and I hope this was somewhat interesting or entertaining or whatever. In any case, thanks for listening.